Hello everyone, Andrew here, and today I have a pretty bizarre video for everyone, because we are going to be looking at Pong consoles. Now these are pretty much just like one thing that you bought from the store, you brought it home, and you played Pong on it, or a variation of it, as you will see. Some of the consoles have, different modes of Pong in them. But yeah, this is back before interchangeable cartridges and things like that, back before even the Atari 2600s. We're going pretty much back to, the beginning of video game time here, and looking at some of the earliest games ever made. There were a whole bunch of different variations of it. I actually have 9 different types of Pong consoles here, some which are complete in blocks and some which aren't, and some that are made by a whole bunch of different companies that I'm sure people probably haven't even heard of, and some which don't really even have a company name on them at all. It's like something that someone hacked together in their basement. So we're going to be looking at a whole bunch of really bizarre stuff like that, and we might as well just jump right into it. The first one I'm going to show is probably one of the most common Pong consoles that you will see out there. I say common, but I mean these days especially, it's not like you usually just, you walk out, walk outside your front door and you'll see these things lying around. But it tends to be that when I do see Pong consoles at a store, this is one that shows up pretty frequently, and that is the Coleco Telstar Pong console. Now this has all the basic features that pretty much all of the Pong consoles that we look at today are going to have. Of course you have the 2 knobs, one for each player to kind of control, your paddle, move it up and down, and then you have a whole bunch of switches. Of course you have, your typical on and off switch. Let's see how close I can get and if it will make any sense. This one up here changes the games. You have like tennis, which is typical Pong, you have hockey, and then you have handball, and so a whole bunch of different kind of variations out there, sometimes with more than one paddle for each player, and sometimes it's just like one player where you bounce it off a wall and see how high of a score you can rack up, and then at the bottom you have a switch for beginner, intermediate, or pro, and that's usually the speed of the balls. Either it will be like, I say the ball, like the little white square that goes across the screen. Usually the speed of that, there's usually a way to, change it from being massively fast or to being pretty slow. And then of course you have, your typical reset button in case you for some reason want to reset the game. Usually the way it works when you play a Pong game like this is that it will go up to 15, and then after a certain player gets 15, the game will just kind of stop working, and the white square that goes across the screen will just phase through kind of all of the paddles as if the game's not working anymore. So you have to reset and pretty much try again to see who can get up to 15 next. But yeah, that is just pretty much one of the most basic variations of a Pong console right there, made by Coleco, who of course also made the ColecoVision and other crazy things like that. So that is why I started off with that, because like I said, it just had some of the basic features that most of the Pong consoles would have at that time, and sometimes they even made sound. Like sometimes the sound even actually comes out of the console itself rather than on your TV. So this is back in the early days of video games when things were completely different, and I find that really funny to go back and look at. But right here, we're going to move on to the next Pong console I want to show. And this one looks a lot different. Well, I say it looks a lot different. It's still, kind of just the massive block with 2 paddles attached to it. So this is before the time when they figured out how to make, the detachable paddles. You had to make sure that, whoever you were playing with was sitting right beside you, and, you were both able to access your, the paddles. I actually really like this one. I find that these things, are really easy to turn. And it's just a really bizarre thing. And for some reason, whenever friends come over, this is usually the one I will hook up. I have absolutely no idea why, but here we have some options that the last one didn't have. And we have the back, which is an important thing to note, and that was probably really hilarious because I wasn't expecting that to come off. You can actually put batteries inside of this thing if you want to play it that way, although of course there are also AC adapters as well. I'll put the battery cover down before it slips off and surprises me again. But yeah, this is one of the ones I was talking about where I really don't know too much about it, or who made it. It does not have a company name on it anywhere. It is called the MultiHome Video Games, and that's all it's really called. On the back, like I said, not really any company name or anything, although it was made in Japan, and that's really all the information that you can get off of this as far as, where the heck it was made. But as I was saying, this one does have options that other Pong consoles, or at least the Coleco one, didn't have, such as bat size. It changes the size of the, the kind of paddle that you move up and down to try and hit the ball with. And then of course you have a switch for ball speed, you have your on and off switch, you can change your game, you have practice, which is of course, just one person bouncing it off the wall, you have squash, tennis, and hockey, you have your reset button, You have the angle, which kind of, determines the angle that the ball will bounce on. And you have serve, which is either auto or manual. So another feature that the last one didn't have, and that determines where, after, someone misses the ball, it can either, if it's on auto, the ball will just, jump right back into the action and you'll start playing again, or the person who missed, can press the serve button, then that will bring the ball back out again. So you can technically, take a break in between each one. If it was like a really intense game or something like that, you need to, reach for your bottle of water mid-Pong, mid-Pong game. So that is another really weird variation of the Pong console. And yeah, if anyone really knows anything about this one, this is one of the earliest Pong consoles I ever got. And it just doesn't have a name on it. I mean, it has a name, MultiHome Video Games, and that's literally what it is. Multi and home are two different words. But yeah, other than the fact that it was made in Japan, there's not really any other information out there about it. And of course, searching MultiHome Video Games on Google is not the most fruitful thing. It doesn't really help at all. The next one we're going to look at, and I'm spending too much time on each of these. Like I said, there's like 9 here. I should really just be skimming through them. Although after this one, there's a few that we don't need to spend too much time on because they don't really introduce anything new. And that is the Video Olympiad, or L-O-Y-M-P-I-A-D, Olympiad. Let's just go with that. And this one is really bizarre. It kind of has like a wood grain on the outside. That was the most popular thing. Although it really is wood. Like it's honestly wood. Unlike the Telstar, where it's like a wood grain sticker, which is pretty high tech and cool, and all your friends will be impressed. This one is really made of wood, and that is super cool. I mean, you can even see like the wood kind of cracking at the end there. It's not really too bad though. But I mean, this one was made in the Philippines, and it was model number Video Sport 7630. And this thing is absolutely crazy. It's another thing I haven't found too much information on out there. It has seen better days. There are a few marks in the front. Of course, not made by me. Were made after I had found it. This one too. I mean, if you open up the back here, again, it's funny that you can put batteries in it. Although, of course, you also have a spot for a power cord if you have one, and the RF cord is built right in. But yeah, this one, of course, 2 paddles on each side again for 2 players. You have your reset button, you have a serve button just like the last one. You have paddle size, large and small. You have channel 3 or 4. You have auto serve, manual serve, fastball, slow ball, and the choice of hockey, tennis, squash, or practice. So again, a lot of the features that the last one had, just another variation of it, and I really like this one because it's made of wood. Like, I don't think I have any other console that is made out of wood like this. I mean, this is kind of a metal plate right here, and then yeah, the rest of it is honestly wood. It's not just like a wood grain on it. It's honestly wood, and I've always thought that was super cool to have that. Next up, we're going to move on to a couple that I have in the box. We're not going to spend very long on these because they don't really introduce anything new. The first one is the APF TV Fun, which, yeah, the box is really beat up, and it's not super great. And, yeah, so we have, styrofoam on each of the sides here, and this is pretty much what it looks like. I'm probably not even going to worry about taking too many of the other ones out. This one, it's, the wood grain, but it's not real wood, like the last one was. Just kind of, like a crazy thing to make it look good. And the cord is all wrapped around it like it shouldn't be. It should be wrapped up better, but yeah, it's another Pong console. And again, it has a lot of the same features as the other ones, and it is pretty fantastic. So let me see if I can get that back into the box there without wrecking everything. I'll probably just put this one down and get it back in later. There we go, just like that. And another one that we're not going to spend very much time on at all is the Paddle 4, the Paddle IV. The interesting part about this one is it's actually the first one we've looked at where the paddles come detached, so the person doesn't have to be sitting directly beside you. The cord length usually wasn't very long, but I mean, at least it meant that they didn't have to be on the exact same kind of chair as you. And this one's all wrapped up nicely in the plastic, so I'm not going to take it out. But you can kind of have a look at just how it appears to be there. And yeah, this is a massive leap in technology now. Like, actually, the paddles come off. It's funny to think back, when that would have been a big deal. And now we have wireless controllers, so, I mean, cords are a thing of the 90s. And, the early 2000s. Although, I mean, the Wavebird did not take too long to come out. Wavebird is one of my favorite controllers for the GameCube. It's wireless, and the batteries, they add that little bit of extra weight, which is pretty cool too, but this is not a GameCube video. I find a way to get GameCube into all of my videos. The next Pong console that we're going to look at, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. We didn't spend too long on those last two, but like I said, not too much new was really introduced there. But something new is definitely introduced here, and this is the Lloyds TV Sports 802. Now, the first thing you are probably realizing on the front of this box is that there's a gun, which is pretty fantastic. This is, again, a Pong console, but I mean, I guess, you know, you had to make some sort of way to make your Pong console stand out above the rest. So they thought, what should we do? Let's add a gun game to it. So here we have the Lloyds console right here, that same one as that is inside that box. And you will see again at the bottom, switches with a whole lot of features that are similar. You have channel selector, bat size, ball speed, angle, manual or auto serve, and a gigantic reset button. Up here we have buttons that allow you to choose your game. You have practice, so that's of course against the wall. You have tennis, which is typical Pong. You have hockey, squash, and then you have pistol and rifle. And you have moving target pistol, minigame, or straight line target. So I mean, you know, the target's always kind of in the middle of the screen. So this thing, they're not plugged into it right now, because yeah, now we actually have not only paddles that, you know, you can kind of have cords so that you can use them elsewhere, but the paddles actually unplugged, and you can plug them in. And this is what the paddle on the Lloyds looks like. It's very bizarre. You know, rather than being a turning knob, you know, you move your paddle up and down. I guess it makes somewhat kind of sense. But on top of that, it also came with a gun. Now, this is back before, you know, there were all these rules about, you know, your gun has to have an orange tip, and it has to be like all like 300 different colors that make it clear it's not real, and it has to be formed this way. Now, this is back when it's like, your console came with a gun. If you were walking around outside at night, someone would probably accidentally mistake this as a real gun. It's definitely one of the most interesting video game guns I have. You know, it's definitely not like the Zapper or anything like that, where, I mean, even the Zapper, I mean, I guess in the right situation, if you had the gray one, could be mistaken as a gun. But this one is, it's like, definitely is, you know, cut the cord, and you'd have a pretty convincing gun at a far distance, I think. But yeah, this is always, you know, one of the most interesting looking guns in my collection. And yeah, so now you don't just have Pong, now you have a target minigame where a target appears on the screen, and, you know, it's either just like, you know, the target practice from far away, or, you know, it's like a duck hunt kind of thing where it's like, shoot the moving target. So that was kind of an interesting innovation for that to have. And yeah, that was the Lloyds TV Sports 802, and this is one of the most interesting Pong consoles I have. And this box is actually in very nice shape, despite its pretty massive age. So I'm going to put that down very nicely. But yes, so there's that. And then moving on to the next Pong console, I'm not going to bother, you know, getting too into this one. But here we have the Unisonic Tournament 2000, which probably came out in the 80s, and, you know, it wasn't anywhere near 2000, but, you know, 2000 sounds cool. You know, Y2K, yeah! So, I mean, it's pretty fantastic. This one here, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but this one also has a gun, and, yeah, this one's gun is pretty fantastic as well. And you have this part here, you can have, you know, an extra thing part here. And just like the last one I didn't bother showing, it also has kind of a butt that you can add on to the end of the gun. You know, in case for some reason, you know, you really, you know, just could not use your gun without the extra kind of piece on the end. You could do that. But otherwise, the console is pretty similar. I guess I might as well take it over here anyway. Yeah, this one's kind of crazy. I mean, you have these things here, so the things aren't detachable. And yeah, that is how that works. And I'm never going to get this back in. This is going to be impossible. There's no styrofoam or anything keeping this in. I don't know why. But, I guess I just don't have it. I'm just going to put all of this over here. Find some room. And this is going to be a massive mess to clean up. I mean, you can't see it because of the angle of the camera, but that shelf is like completely empty now. All these Pong consoles are here. Thankfully, I took a picture of what it looked like before I took it all out, because I'd probably never get it all back in properly otherwise. Alright, let's see. I can move this. Let's keep that there. 2 more to go. I just have to not get killed in an avalanche of Pong consoles within the next 5 minutes, and I should be good. The next thing I'm going to show is pretty interesting, and this is the Odyssey 200. There were a couple of different variations of Odyssey consoles. Now, of course, the original Odyssey is you know, named as like one of the very first consoles ever to have interchangeable cartridge games. But then there were really weird kind of like other Odyssey consoles, like the Odyssey 200, Odyssey 300, and they were just more or less Pong consoles. I'm not really sure why they decided to go that route, you know, after they had, you know, the original Odyssey. So it's like, why are you suddenly making Pong consoles? You have the very first console ever to have interchangeable cartridges. And this is not going to work. I need to move the Lloyds elsewhere so that I have room to do things. But yeah, this one, I mean, yeah, the box is kind of in beat up shape, and you can't really get a good look at the picture. from far away. I'm probably not going to take this one out because I already have enough stuff to put away. But this one, it's just another Pong console. You have knobs on the side, you have a thing in the middle to kind of change, actually wait, no, yeah. The thing in the middle, how exactly does that work actually? Because that's not how I think it works, is it? Wow. I think that's true. I believe that this Pong console actually doesn't even keep score. And that's right, that's coming back to me now. There's actually these things in the middle, and you can't see it because of the way I have the cord wrapped around it, but you actually have to move these things up and down to keep track of what score each person has, and it goes from 0 to 15. So, I mean, you're talking about primitive. That is pretty massively primitive. But yeah, I mean, just so many different versions of Pong. It's absolutely, crazy that all these things were even a thing back then. And with that out of the way, we have one final Pong console to go. And then, yeah, we will call it a day because I am getting all Ponged out. 9 Pong consoles is too many Pong consoles. This right here that's the French side. That's the English side. Okay, we have Speedway. Now, this is another thing. So, I mean, this, obviously, they didn't want to go the shooting route. So, like, what other thing can we add into it to make it different than all the other ones? So, they added in a racing game. But yeah, I mean, it still has, your hockey, your tennis. But now we have road racing added in. And, yeah, you can see them all kind of enjoying it there. I do kind of want to take this one out. Even though I'm already, 30 minutes deep in cleanup here. I'm pretty okay with that. If we take this out of the box, this is also an interesting one. I mean, usually all the other boxes I have are actual boxes with flaps. This one, you kind of just slide out a piece of styrofoam, and you get these things here. Now, these are by far the weirdest paddles. I mean, you hold this thing, and you can kind of rotate this knob here. And there's actually 3 of them, which is pretty neat. I'm not entirely sure how that works, I forget. But overall, this is a thing. It was made by Sears. Sears is still a thing. I think I said in one of my videos, is Sears even a thing anymore? They're definitely not as prominent as they used to be. I mean, my parents always told me, they'd get the Sears catalog and they'd order tons of stuff about it. We have like a living room upstairs with this couch in it. My parents will always be like, "Oh, I remember back when we ordered that from the Sears catalog." And I'll be like, "Yeah, really." Sears used to be a thing, but now everyone just goes to Walmart or something like that. But yeah, so I mean, Speedway, that is another interesting variation of a Pong thing. And yeah, with that, I hope that, that has been an interesting crash course in Pong consoles. You can kind of see the evolution of, ones that don't have any kind of paddles, or like, detachable paddles, to ones where everything unplugs, to ones where have a gun, to ones that have racing games, to ones made, an Odyssey one that didn't even keep score and you had to move this thing up and down. It's absolutely bizarre. It's crazy to see just how far video games have come since back then. Because like I said, most of this is from before even the Atari 2600 was a thing. So yeah, if you haven't seen these things before, I really hope that you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see what I can do, as long as it does not result in me making another mess, because like I said, this is already going to take 17 years to clean up. But it's just really cool to see, how every Pong console, despite the fact it's Pong, they have their differences, and I think that's so neat. And again, that's just one of the cool things about video game collecting, especially when you go back this far. You start to just see, how far things have come and what things used to look like, and especially when it comes to Pong consoles, these things that have like one game built in with like a couple of variations of it, just how diverse and different each one of these machines can be, despite the fact they're almost the exact same game. That is just really bizarre, and I hope that everyone enjoyed seeing this stuff as much as I enjoy looking at it myself. And yeah, if you did not know too much about Pong consoles before this video, hopefully now you are a Pong console expert. And I hope that you enjoyed that. So, I think I have a lot of cleaning up to do after, taking pretty much everything I have out of its box. So yeah, I think I'm going to get to that. So I hope that you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time for something different. So thanks, and see you later.